Hey guys, okay, so I wanted to talk to you guys today about some of the things we've been talking a lot about. Denise Duffield Thomas, who is an amazing lady entrepreneur, and what she talks about and she teaches about are money mindset issues, and a lot of things that she talks about also relate to entrepreneurs, although you don't have to be an entrepreneur to follow her stuff. But anyway, obviously all of us in here are. So I wanted to talk about some of my money sabotages and business sabotages and how those go hand in hand. And I know that like sabotages are something that is a little bit weird to talk about because I am extremely driven. So I am very competitive. I love working. I always feel like I need to like go. And so reaching like goals for me is kind of just something that I feel like I have to do. And that in and of itself can be a sabotage, but we'll get to that later. So basically a sabotage is something that where you let a habit or a fear, whether it's a reasonable fear or a crazy fear, and you let it affect your behaviors, and that behavior is the sabotage. So I actually wrote down from the first time I went through Money Boot Camp, which is Denise Duffield Thomas's flagship course, and I wrote down, she has this handy sheet where it's like called the sabotage exercise, and you can go through and you mark like, oh yeah, I do that all the time, or like I never do that. And I wanted to talk about the ones that I have personally, and number one, how those affected my business, but also on the flip side, how I turned those into positive things and made them into different things. Here's the thing, here's why this is so important. There are a lot of reasons why we have sabotages. They can be, like I said, like irrational fears, or they can be like founded fears that you're like, okay, well, this really happened to me. But the bottom line is, if we manage our money and our business from a place of fear or a place of like worry and frustration, or if we listen to like these negative things that people say, or like the things that everyone believes that are really crap, then we are not going to be able to achieve nearly the same level of success as we would if we get rid of some of these sabotages and really help you like move forward and essentially just do the same thing that you're doing, just doing it better. So okay, so here are the sabotages that I have. The biggest one was spending money as soon as I get it. This was a really huge one, and we would see this a lot, like especially when I would have like a really good month and like my commissions would get paid, or when I would do a product launch, and I would be like literally like sitting in PayPal going, okay, now how much can I spend on Amazon? Like, I'm not kidding. I would be like, oh, refresh. Oh, I made a sale. I'm gonna go spend some more money. And so one of the things that I did when I was really having a hard time, because y'all, I love to shop, and I used to feel like in order to be responsible, I had to live cheaply. And I felt like being cheap was the same as being frugal. And I have learned since that it is not. I'm gonna give you guys a really good example. Bras. Now, I am not a small lady. I am a well-endowed, curvy lady. And so it can be difficult for me to find bras that are like really amazing and wonderful and support things and keep everything where they should. And so I have learned, though, that companies like Lane Bryant and Torrid, they work really well, and they are actually made for ladies who have some curves, and they cost a lot more than what I would necessarily get at like Walmart, but they hold up really well. And for me, it makes sense to buy something that I feel good in, that actually fits me well, and that will hold up. And so it's one of those examples of like feeling like I can spend money on things that are high quality instead of buying something that's cheap, because cheap is not the same as frugal. And so with that mindset though of like, okay, I have to be a frugal person, so I have to buy cheap things, and then like they wouldn't work as well, or they would need to be replaced, or I just kind of hated them, and then it made me feel broke all the time. then I would find that as I was starting to feel really like kind of poor because I was using like dollar store organizing bins instead of buying something that was actually like looked really pretty, that I would go, okay, well, I'm going to buy something else to help me compensate for the fact that the organizers that I just bought they don't bring me any feeling of satisfaction, because even though they work, they're kind of ugly and I hate them. So when you have a sabotage, it creates like this whole cycle of things that it hurts you. And so my biggest sabotage was spending money as soon as I get it. And so how I kind of flipped this on its side is I started to go, okay, as soon as I get money in the bank, I'm going to spend it into savings. Or as soon as I get money in PayPal or whatever, I would spend it into savings, because I really have struggled a lot with putting money in savings because of the spending, right? Or I would spend it by prepaying bills. This is something that really, really worked well for me. If you haven't seen it, I do have a video. It's over on YouTube, and it's called our digital cash envelope system. And basically, I would spend money by putting it into, if you were using an actual cash system, it would be like your envelopes. And for my bank account, they're called goals. So I would spend money by putting those in the envelopes. So in my brain, I get this feeling of like, okay, well, I spent money buying electricity. Because even though I don't necessarily get anything, like I'm not going to get like an Amazon package with like, oh, here's your electricity for the month. It did actually give me some satisfaction. And I also got the satisfaction of knowing that I was buying something instead of just going, okay, well, I either can't buy anything or I have to buy all of this stuff. And so kind of changing the mindset of, instead of looking at like, well, I'm putting money aside for bills. To me, like, first of all, that's boring. Secondly, not fun. Thirdly, just, it just doesn't, there's no emotion in that, and it doesn't give me any satisfaction. But if I go, hey, I just pre-bought my electricity bill or my electricity for the month or whatever, then that actually makes me feel better, because I feel like I got something out of it. And I know that it's a little bit of a weird mind shift thing, but just doing that as someone who absolutely loves to shop, that was really huge for me. So the next big sabotage that I had was procrastinating on follow-up. Okay, so I have this thing, okay, I am a starter. Let's create this amazing plan, and then I'll set up the systems. And then, like, usually right around the time that the system is set up or the plan is done, I'm like, ugh, I am so burned out and I hate this and I never want to do it again. Because that's just how my brain works. And so something that I have learned is that and this goes two different ways. So as a business owner, this is really hard for me, but I've also learned to set it up because here's how it works. I know that I'm a plan person. I like to make plans. And so what that means to me is I need to make plans and then delegate pieces of it. And so let's say I made a plan for a product launch. I would go, okay, here's the plan for the product launch, everyone. And then I could be me and be creative and do all these wonderful things, and then give my team time so they can do all the nitty-gritty details, because I'm burned out by that point. By that point, I'm like, psh, I'm done. I'm never doing it again. And I will work on the project. I will work on the launch, but I just need some time to feel like I'm starting over again. And so that's one piece. I've also learned to use things like sales funnels, because it allows me to like pour all of my time and energy and my creative effort into something. And then it gives me long-term results without having to do consistent work every single day, because those kinds of systems to me are boring. Tailwind for Pinterest affiliate marketing is a perfect example of that. That's why I do like 2 days-ish a month where I will manage my Pinterest affiliate marketing business. That's why I set it up that way, because I know that I'm like, work on all the pins, and then I'm like, ugh, I hate Pinterest. I'm never going to go on Pinterest again. But that's how I work well, because I know that there are people, and I know some of you guys are in the group, and you all are wonderful people who like get up and they have like the same thing that they do every day, like they're like routine people. I am not like that. I am a free spirit. I like to do my own thing, and I might have like a routine that works for like a week, but then I'm like, yeah, I'm done with that, and then it's gone. Like, I'm over that. The only reason I have really regular routines is because I have children and they need to do things like nap. So anyway, so there's that. So procrastinating on follow-up is something on the business side that I've really, really learned to overcome. And then on a personal note, what I've started doing is I have, and this is like really simple, and I know that like every time management thing out there like recommends it, but it actually really works for me. I have, well, maybe not exactly, but I have stickers that I use. I have a whole container of stickers, and it sits right here next to my desk. And so I will show you. These are all of my planner stickers. My planner and I are best friends. We do all things together. And so what I do is I have little, let me see if I can find some really quick. They are basically, I can't find them right now, probably because I've left them somewhere because I was using them. They're like to-do list check stickers. And so I put the little sticker on there for the day, and then I'm like, okay, what are the 3 to 5 things I have to do today? And then once I do those things, I can do whatever I want. And so I create 5 tasks, not projects, tasks that I need, things that emotionally are kind of a block for me. So like, for example, right now, actually, I need to do some training for a new team member, and I was moving and life was crazy, and I was like, I just don't have time to do this. In reality, creating the video would take me like 10 minutes. I have spent more time thinking about the fact that I need to do it than actually doing it. So for today, or possibly tomorrow, depending on, because my son is sick, so sometimes life has to be flexible for the sick tiny humans. So today or tomorrow, but it's written on my list for today. At the top of it is video trainings, and the next thing was like, do a video here, and then the Inner Circle coaching program, I'm doing a video there too. So just having those couple of things, anything that like causes me stress, that usually gets done first. So even if it's just little things, like an example for personal life outside of like business is like I had rotisserie chickens that I really needed to bake yesterday, and my schedule got crazy yesterday, and a lot of life happened, and so it didn't end up happening. And so today, one of my first things, I knew that I needed to cook the chickens. I just needed to put them in the oven and bake them, and it wasn't going to be like, nothing else needed to happen until the stupid chickens got put in the oven. You know what I mean? So it was just one of those things. Like, that was also on my list for today, but I have like a business list and a personal list because they're, different. So that was one big thing. So I create my list of 5 tasks to do, and sometimes I get through all of them, and sometimes they get carried over the next day. For example, I would not be surprised if the video training doesn't happen until tomorrow because Logan is sick and he needs mommy when he's sick. You know how that goes, right? Okay, so moving on to the next thing, rating savings constantly. Okay, being a shopper, right? I like things. Amazon and I are in a committed relationship. We see each other quite frequently. I always find a reason, or previously always found a reason to raid my savings account. And that was really frustrating for me because I never quite understood. Like, I knew on one hand, like, I need to have savings because that helps with my financial stability. I know that I have to do it. But then, like, on the other hand, I was always like, I would get money in and I was like, I'm going to be responsible and I am not going to save. I'm not going to spend the money. I'm going to save it. But then, like, the voices would come, like oh, you really need a new skirt. I don't even wear skirts, y'all. I have a lot of them, though. You really need a new pair of jeans. You really need that teal pillow on Amazon. Y'all, everything in my life is teal, okay? Like, literally everything in my life is teal. Somehow I always need more teal things, though. You need a new fish from the aquarium store. You need, like, y'all, for real, it was a real problem. Like, I always needed something. And so I constantly felt like if I put money in savings, what was the point? because I was never doing it right. Like I was never able to keep it. So one of the things that I did that really, really helped me and was I actually created 2 separate savings accounts. So I have like my emergency savings account where our goal is to have a year's worth of expenses in that account. That way, crazy life happens, whatever, we have that money there. The other thing that we had is, or that we have now, is what's called retained earnings. Now, as a Pinterest affiliate marketer, you may not necessarily need this to be like a huge fund, but I like to keep 3 to 6 months of our business expenses in this account. That way, if business slowed down, we would still be able to do things like pay our monthly subscriptions, and I'd be able to pay my wonderful team because they like it when I pay them, so that's important. And so what I did was I didn't just create the accounts, because just creating the accounts didn't really help me. I set up, as if it was a bill, automatic transfers. That really helped me because, number one, if I had the money just sitting in my regular checking account, that was bad for me. I needed to not have it. So I put it in a savings account that I have no debit card to. We don't use credit cards, but I had no debit card. If I wanted that money, I had to intentionally transfer it out of that account into our savings account or into our regular checking account and then wait for it. And here's the kicker. The bank that we use a bank called Simple Bank. And anytime there's any activity in the account, there's a transfer in or transfer out, or somebody uses one of our debit cards, it pops up on your phone in the app. And number one, it's actually really nice because I always know what's going on with my account. I always know, when a bill got paid, a bill went through, or when a transfer hits or whatever. But my husband also sees it. And y'all, it's hard to tell your honey, like, hey, I know that we've been working hard and like being frugal to save for these goals, but like I really needed that $300 new office chair on Amazon. So I took money out of our emergency fund to do that. Y'all, my husband is a saver. He loves having money in savings, and he is not a spender in any way, shape, or form. It is really hard to actually get him to spend money, even when we need to sometimes. And so that was just a different level of accountability. And it worked really well for us because my husband is so much of a saver. And like now, I'll just be straight with you. Like Ian, for the most part, I usually manage the money. So if he saw a transfer into savings, from savings into our checking account, he wouldn't be like, woman, why would you do that? Like he would be like, hey, what was that for? And if I really said I needed a $300 chair, he might look at me funny, but then he would be like, well, as long as we have the money. He's very easygoing. However, I would feel bad knowing that I had sabotaged us to get a stupid office chair. Although I do actually really need a new office chair. So, but anyway, so that was one of the biggest things. So I decided, and so I also used the same thing that we talked about with the spending earlier. And I would say, instead of thinking of it as like, okay, well, I'm saving money for the future. Y'all, that's boring. Like, for real. There is no excitement in like saving for the future. It doesn't inspire me. It doesn't excite me. It doesn't like, woohoo, I did so good. Like, it's boring. For what? For the future. Like, what are you saving for? Are you investing for retirement? Are you like, what is the point? Saving for emergencies? Because like, that's kind of just this abstract thing. And so what I started thinking of it as buying into my goals. So I have a chart, and it's I don't have it right now, but it's basically like this thing where I've created goals for myself for things like our savings and our investments. And when I hit certain levels of those goals, like I hit 3 months of expenses or 6 months of expenses and savings, I get to buy something that's X dollar amount. And I really like that, y'all. And so, but I think of it not as like, okay, I want to get to, 6 months of goal so I can spend X number of dollars. I think of it as buying into finishing a goal, because like I am driven, like we talked about that, I am driven and I like to finish things. I like to check things off my list, and I love the feeling of accomplishment of being like, look at that project, it is done. Because remember we talked about like I'm a starter, it's hard for me to finish things and be consistent. And so I also break things down. So instead of being like, okay, and I'm making up a number. Let's say I wanted to have a savings goal of $10,000. I wouldn't go, okay, our goal is $10,000. Like, let's go. Like, that's a huge goal. And there were times where when we first started saving money, when I remember we're like $20 a month was really hard for us to start saving because we were so broke. So $10,000 was our eventual goal. But at that point, I was like, look, any money in savings is good. And so even now, though, I can't approach huge savings goals and go, okay, well, here's the goal. It may be 8 months off, but it's out there and we'll kind of walk towards it. Like, that doesn't work for me. I have to have baby steps. I do a lot of bullet journaling kind of style things where like I have boxes to color in, because I do it in increments of $500. Every $500 I get to color a box. And it's a little thing. It's not something that's complicated. It doesn't really cost me any money. I mean, like, I've got pens and stuff, but I've already got those. And so, but I can color in a box because I get the satisfaction of doing it. So rating the savings constantly was a really, really big one for me. And once I kind of got over that, it gave me this huge sense of security. And that's the other thing that I buy when I buy savings. I may be just depositing money into a savings account, but I'm buying the fact that I feel better, and it feels just as good to me as buying a $300 office chair to put $300 into savings and know that if I needed money, that I could have it. And so sometimes I'm like, like I'm transferring money out of PayPal and I'm like, I'm buying peace of mind today. I'm buying a car repair today. I'm buying next month's potential oil change or brake servicing or whatever it is. And I think about it in terms of buying something and getting something out of it instead of just like piling money, because to me it almost feels like hoarding, which is unhealthy. And so that was one of the big sabotages that I had. And then procrastinating on the follow-up. This is really, really, no, I'm sorry, we already did that one. Okay. Blowing money when I have a good month. So this really relates to the first one that I said, which was spending money as soon as I get it. Blowing money when I have a good month is a huge one. So especially not so much with Pinterest affiliate marketing, because typically my Pinterest affiliate marketing now has really evened out. And so if I may have some spikes, but typically Organize Your Biz and my blogs are where I really make like huge spikes of income and then drops off. Because that's just the nature of the beast. I might do like an affiliate promotion, or I might do a product launch, or just something like that. I might start a new funnel, which will bring in a good number of sales when I first start the funnel. And so that's hard for me because it feels like extra when it isn't really. And one of the ways that I really had to work on doing that was, instead of having normal budgeting techniques, what I would actually do is I would use the excuse me, you guys. I use something called the drip system to manage my money. So each stream of income that I have, when it gets deposited into my bank account or deposited into my PayPal account, it automatically has a place to go now. So like we have a couple of streams of income that we live off of. Those are our like normal, almost what normal people would consider like their paychecks. That paycheck is what we live off of, and everything else goes to other goals. This really helped me because it took me out of the equation. So for example, like my share a sale money right now is going into our savings account. Eventually we will have that going into an investment account for our children's future. But right now we're focusing on doing a couple of things. I need a new car, new to me car, I don't need it to be new. And we have our goal of having a year's worth of expenses and savings. Things like, it was really cool because we had a lot in savings. We were really close to hitting our goal. And then when we moved into this house, they weren't sure if they wanted us as tenants because they had a couple other people who were interested and who had applied first. And so knowing the power of cash and knowing that this house was perfect for us, and like I have a huge office, so it's perfect for me. But when we did that, I said, hey, well, if you really, if you're really not sure, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 6 months cash up front. And you know what? We're the ones sitting in the house. So cash, having money in savings gives you a lot of options, and it's nice because I can look back and go, man, all those times when I transferred money in from PayPal or wherever, or had money automatically deposited into my savings account, I was buying my ability to live in a house that I absolutely love. And that's what I was buying. I was buying something tangible, because being able to live in a huge, like, old vintage farmhouse instead of having to go live in like some crappy apartment with no yard, like, that's something I would put money towards. And so it's important to think of it in a way that makes sense to you. And so the last one that I'm going to talk about is actually being afraid to save money. So when I first started trying to save money, I was really, really motivated. And so what I would do is I would transfer money from our checking account to our savings account. But then by the end of the month or the end of the week or whatever, in the pay period, I would be stuck. I didn't know what to do because I'd put money in savings and therefore we didn't have it in our checking account. And I was essentially over saving because I hadn't quite figured out the budgeting thing. We didn't really have a lot of extra money. We really didn't have almost any extra money. And so it created this cycle where I was constantly like trying to save and wasn't really able to save as much as I wanted to. And so I felt like if I put money in the savings account, because I had it happen so many times, if I put money in the savings account, I wasn't going to have money to do things like groceries and pay our bills and like the necessities of life. And that was really hard for me to overcome. One of the things that Denise Duffield Thomas talks about in her Money Bootcamp course is talking about, what does she call them? BS excuses is one of them. And I love it because we have these crazy things that we think. And some of them are like perfectly rational, like saying, hey, I'm worried that at the end of the month, I won't have enough money to pay my bills if I put money in savings. Like, that's an example of like a rational one. But there are also like some really crazy fears that I've had. Like, okay, here's an example. We were talking about when my husband wanted to leave his job, and we had like all these fears. And so we were talking them out because my husband has also listened to all the boot camp talks. And he said, you know, one of the biggest things that I'm afraid of is if I leave my job, you won't need me, basically. And you'll we'll end up getting divorced and all this stuff, because I was married once before and I did divorce the guy, but that was because he beat up on me. It's a whole different thing. And I said, well, I understand. And I said, because I was afraid of moving here to North Carolina because I felt like, okay, I knew my husband wanted to like live out in the country, which is great. But like, I grew up in the city, y'all. Like, I don't know about like cows and horses and chickens, and I know a little bit about chickens, but like I've never actually had my own chickens. And so like, I don't know anything about all that stuff. And I was like, I was really afraid that he was going to not want to be with me anymore, because he would be like, wow, you're like such a city girl, and you know, this isn't going to work, and we were going to end up getting divorced. Like, and it was one of those things where like, I wasn't necessarily walking around being like, well, one day my husband's going to divorce me, because it's not like something that we talk about every day. Like, oh, well, I'm going to divorce you if we're fighting, but like, it's a real fear. Like, it was a genuine fear that I had. But to him, he heard me say that and he was like, woman, you are crazy. And he's like, I would not just no. And he was like, he knew that I was a city girl when we got together. He got to laugh at me as I experienced life at his parents' farm. And he knew that. He knew that was how it was. There's no secret here. It's not like, oh, surprise, I don't know anything about living in the country. And really, as it turns out, it's really not that complicated. It's really not that different from living in the city, other than the weird things like not having trash service or slower internet. It's really not that much different than it was living in like a big city. And so we have all of these things. And if you can acknowledge the fears that you have and process those and go, okay, well, what if my husband is frustrated because he wants me to be a city girl, or he doesn't want me to be a city girl, he wants me to be a country girl. Well, you know what? Sometimes that happens. Sometimes my husband just looks at me and he's like, woman, because I don't know things. And you know what he does? He kindly and nicely educates me on things. I also Google a lot of things, and it works well. I also, and we have an understanding, he does his country handyman things outside, and inside, mama gets to decorate the house, usually with things I buy on Amazon, and it works well. It's about compromise and facing those irrational fears that turn into the sabotages that I've been talking about. That makes a huge, huge difference in the quality of life that you have and how you can fearlessly do new things in your business. For example, if I hadn't learned to stop procrastinating on follow-up, if I had never learned to delegate, this group would not exist. Actually, it was, you all may have seen Jamie Russell. She is one of the moderators here. She basically runs Organizer Biz behind the scenes, her and her team of amazing, awesome people. They rock. If you typically email my team, almost every time it's them handling it because they do the follow-up. But if I had never sat down and gone, wow, you know what, I really suck at following up with things, even though that isn't my skill, I can do it better by delegating. Or with Pinterest affiliate marketing, I can do it better by using Tailwind instead of feeling like I hated this business because I had to do it every day. I can do it better by using Board Booster looping so that I'm constantly showing my new followers even old pins, and they're constantly getting recycled. So I'm literally constantly always making money, even though Board Booster looping, like I check in with it maybe once a month if I remember. While life has been crazy, while we moved, I think it's been like 3 months, but I'm still making money. And so whatever it is that your sabotages are, and yours are going to be different than mine, but whatever yours are, you kind of have to face them and go, okay, there's a reason why I do this. There's a reason why I believe what I believe. There's a reason why I believe that I can't have money in my savings account. Okay, what if that horrible thing happened? And then you can kind of just walk through the process and it will change your life. So one thing real quick before we're done today, and I would love to respond to you guys in the comments, and I would love to hear all your thoughts. Denise Duffield Thomas is hosting a webinar, and she is an amazing, amazing person. I'm going to throw a link in the description to this video, and I just wanted to let you know, and I'll also leave it in a comment. You should absolutely go watch the webinar, even if you know that you aren't necessarily in a place to buy one of her courses. I got one of her courses because a friend of mine recommended her, because I was doing really well in my business. I was making a lot of money. I was making like way more money than I ever had before. I was out earning my husband, which was weird and strange because my business had always been like kind of an expensive hobby that mostly kind of lost money, and I wasn't getting anywhere financially. Like once we paid off our debt, like I was all like savings, but like we've talked about the savings thing, right? Like that wasn't really happening. And I really felt stuck and I felt trapped and I was frustrated and I felt like a failure and I was a disappointment, even though I was making great money. Like in my mind, I had always thought like once I start making more money, all of these things are just going to be easy to me. And they weren't. And so I would just want to encourage you, if you feel like overwhelmed or scared or frustrated, Denise has some really, really good stuff that she's going to talk about in her webinar. And I think the webinar is actually on the 16th. And so, but all the time and stuff is there on the registration page. So anyway, I'll put a link up, but I cannot tell you how helpful that this kind of exercise has been for me, because it has allowed me to view things instead of going, okay, well, I suck and I'm a failure and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm just going to give up and just forget putting money in savings because obviously I suck at it. And having a reason and going, oh yeah, well, okay, why am I afraid to save money? Why am I constantly sabotaging myself, even though I want more than anything to succeed and make progress and be financially secure for my family and financially secure for my employees who depend on the money that I give them. Financially secure for future Christina who wants a car. You know, like these things that I really wanted, like deep in my core, but I didn't know how to do. Not because like, I mean, I know how to do money management hypothetically, but it's the emotions and stuff that cloud your judgment and make it really hard. So anyway, Denise Duffield Thomas's webinar is going to be amazing, and I'm actually going to go, even though I've taken her course and I actually have seen this webinar before. It is totally worth it, and I learned so much. Actually, true story. So I did this webinar, and I had already read her book. Her book is called, well, she has two books. One is called Lucky Bitch, and then the other is called Get Rich Lucky Bitch. And I was so excited about her webinar. I was like, look, I loved her book. It changed my life. And so I went to watch the webinar, and I was like, hey, Ian, can you do bedtime with the kids? Because I have to watch this webinar. Ian's like, yeah, sure. And so like I grabbed my notebook, because I always have a notebook, and I grabbed my wallet. Like literally, that's how it was. And Ian was like, why are you grabbing your wallet? And I was like, oh, it's Denise's webinar. And he was like, oh, okay, go ahead and buy whatever she has. He didn't ask the price, even though he's like a serious savings guy, right? Like he does not spend money, because he had already seen how amazing Denise's stuff is and how much it had already changed our lives, just like getting her books. So it is one of the very few things that I just like was like, I am going to invest in this no matter what it costs. Actually, I was surprised at the price because it wasn't as high as I thought it would be, but it was absolutely worth it. And in her money boot camp, she also has a Facebook group, which is amazing. And like I post there sometimes, it's awesome. So anyway, but yes, definitely go see her webinar, even if you're like not even wanting to join the course, because like you will leave and you'll be like, oh, and like the angels will be singing, and you'll be like, I have so many things that I want to do better and change about my life. And like, she's just awesome. So anyway, there you go. Feel free to leave me like comments and stuff. I would love to chat with you guys more about it. And I would love to hear some of your sabotages too, if if that's something that you're struggling with, because I know how hard it can be. So, all right. I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.